had these limiting beliefs of myself of like, oh, I'm just a guy who can do the little things, but I could do more, and I could play more as an individual and do more and do things that I had always really wanted, but didn't believe that I could.
That's really powerful. And I think let's go right there and talk about those limiting beliefs and talk about those mental barriers that we often place on ourselves. Especially I feel like when you're in high school, it's almost you put on these mental barriers just to fit in sometimes, and other times it may just be confidence issues. So with that being said, I'd love for you to share, kind of the story that you told me before we hopped on about your limiting belief about reading and kind of how you were able to attack that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was one of those kids, and we all know them, and maybe we're some of them, where I was an extremely below average reader when it came to the speed at which I read and the reading comprehension growing up, like in middle school and even elementary school. I would read things, it'd take me a long time, and then when I was done, I couldn't tell you one thing that I just read. I couldn't recall it. And so I remember being embarrassed in mostly middle school because I would get pulled out of class, not for sports, not for some special thing. I get pulled out for reading help, reading guide. I'd work with a counselor to improve my reading, and people knew it, and I felt embarrassed because it was like a kind of a. I felt at the time, and again, I was 12 years old, but I felt like it was a shot at my character because I'm not as good at reading as my friends and my peers, and growing up with that belief that I'm not good at reading, uh, really I kind of self sabotaged myself because I told myself I wasn't good at reading. And so it's embarrassing to say, but all throughout high school and all throughout college, I did not read a single book cover to cover, not once. Did I have book assignments? Yep. Did I have assignments where like the goal was read this book and write this thing and then or summarize and present it? Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, you just asked me about my favorite teachers. One of those was my English teacher. So sorry, Miss Moore, I never actually read a book from cover to cover. I did a lot of skimming. I did a lot of skimming. I did a lot of spark notes, just anything to get by. And even in college, I was kind of, it didn't matter as much because I was a physics major. So a lot of it was more like performing and math based stuff. Um, but even then, I never read actually fully, truthfully, honestly read a book cover to cover. And I had an epiphany actually. It was only 2 years ago now, um, where that limiting belief stuck with me. And I told myself all my life I wasn't a good reader. And so I didn't practice reading. And because I didn't practice reading, I never got better at reading. So it was really a self sabotaging, self fulfilling prophecy. And I finally realized like I wanted to change that. Like, and it started with my mindset. And once I told myself, like, look, a fact is I'm slower, I'm a slower reader. My reading comprehension isn't great, but I can change, I can do something about that. And so for the first time in my life, a year ago, I fully, honestly read every word of a book cover to cover. And it was awesome. And I know for a lot of people that's a small accomplishment, but for me that's huge. Not reading a book since like for the majority of my life. Um, and it's funny, that book actually, the one I read, talked about limiting beliefs, and that's where it was almost like a sign to me in a way. Like I was feeling this way already, and then the book I happened to read spoke on exactly that. And it's really taken off from there. I'm still not a super fast reader, and I can admit that. And I'm okay with that. But the thing is, I'm getting better, and I've now read 4 or 5, maybe 6 books now, cover to cover. Honestly, all words. I can look in the mirror and say I did not cheat it. I read every word. I can recall what happened. So I'm getting better. And what's been cool is like connecting that idea to sports, to people in general, to life. I think people in general have a lot of limiting beliefs that cause them to not go for what they want, and they don't even give their dreams a chance or their goals a chance because they tell themselves they can't. And so that, and mindset's everything. So without that, you can't even start your goals.
I feel like that's a really serendipitous moment to like read about limiting beliefs when you're starting to connect the dots of like, okay, wow, I can become a great reader, right? where I'm at right now, and I think that this is the hardest thing to recognize almost as human is like where I'm at right now does not mean where I'm going to finish, right? It's like you were kind of talking about before, moving that goalpost, right? We can still with a small goalpost. We can start at the 10-yard line, then we go to the 20. We don't have to try and score a touchdown right away. And so just trying to, kind of get out of our comfort zones a little bit here and there. So with that being
Yeah.
said, can you talk about how you with your physics students and talking about how you're not coaching you're teaching collegiate level and I'm in such a sports mode collegiate level physics can you talk about how even some of the smartest and brightest students at your school still have limiting beliefs of their own learning ability?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And so, yeah, for the first time in my career, I actually taught college level physics, and I'm currently doing that. Um, and what's so different is that I'm in the room with the smartest kids on campus. So these kids are absolutely used to getting A's on everything. I've actually checked a lot of their transcripts. Some of them have not had a single B, B anything in high school or in middle school, which is that's crazy to me. I mean, I was a pretty good student myself, but that's pretty impressive. The problem with that, though, that success in that way, if you have to look at it as a problem, is that they're so used to getting that.